I came across this really interesting video where basically the thesis was that rich people aren't buying Gucci belts, Saint Laurent bags, and Rolexes. The middle class are. The example they provide is, imagine walking into a room filled with 3 bags, 2 from Walmart and 1 from Louis Vuitton. Can you spot the luxury brand? You'd probably guess it's this LV bag because of the logos plastered all over it, but the plot twist here is that there's another bag, unassuming yet stylish, a Birkin bag worth over $30,000 that's not actually from Walmart. So here's the surprising truth. The mainstream luxury fashion industry has conditioned us to equate luxury with loud branding, yet often the most high-end products are just status symbols, unattainable and coveted mostly by those who can't really afford them. This is in contrast to what rich people buy, where the branding is not so obvious. So essentially, the idea is that real luxury hides in plain sight. So this video really got me thinking, what truly is real luxury? What do these genuinely wealthy people spend their money on? Well, I live in Vancouver, which is one of the most expensive cities in the world, and I also work here as a software engineer at Amazon. So from all of the wealthy people that I've met, these are the top 3 things that they buy. First thing is that a lot of these fashion items, they often invest in items that not only retain, but they actually grow in value, which are considered essentially true assets. While many people think of luxury items like Rolex watches or Louis Vuitton bags as their high-end purchases, these items actually depreciate right after your purchase. In contrast, the really affluent people who I've met choose to invest in watches such as Patek Philippe, which are known for their limited editions as well as appreciating in value, FP Journe, which has really complex, really good craftsmanship, and also appreciates values for their limited editions. Now, there's other categories such as art, cars. I have a mentor who has this Aston Martin, which has actually increased in price for him, wine, clothing that we don't often know about. My point being is that in all of these categories, not only in fashion, there are items that appreciate in value, which are also luxuries, and they are exclusive, niche market knowledge, not really accessible to the middle class. If you saw people walking around with these types of watches, maybe this type of clothing, it's more subtle and it's really hard to recognize unless you really know about these particular brands. Now, that's not to say that rich people don't buy consumables, which are products that do end up decreasing in value. For example, a lot of the wealthy people who I know, they do invest in private planes, having personal chefs, having drivers, which are essentially fixed costs that go down the drain every single month. While these might seem like extravagant expenses, they are often justified as business purchases, which are not only luxurious, but they're also practical for them. For one, you can write it off for tax. And secondly, these services save something for them that's more valuable than money, which is their time. They've all done the calculation. They've figured out that, oh, if I get a driver, it's going to cost me this much, and I just have to make this amount of money during that time in order to justify that cost. This is in contrast to, I think, a lot of middle-class families, which don't treat time, I think, in the way that it deserves to be treated in some instances. For example, my parents would often wait over an hour to save on gas at Costco, which, if you really think about it, for all those people lining up, is it really worth the time that you're spending to save on those couple of cents in gas? Now, the final item that I find wealthy people buy is the craziest by far. But before I get into that, notice that there is one key requirement to all of this, which is that you need to have a high enough income to justify these purchases. They're probably just spending like 2%, 3% to get an asset outside of their normal stock investments for fun. Like these watches, yes, they'll appreciate in value, but they're buying these things as a small purchase beyond their normal investments to essentially diversify. Also, in order to get the tax benefits, you have to have business income. So to get a write-off for purchasing your vehicle, to get a write-off for, buy your travel expenses, to get a write-off for certain things, they can only exist if you have a high enough business income to write it off. If you're just earning a normal salary, it's not going to be possible for you to actually get that written off. With that in mind, if you do have a high enough business income, the third item is, in my opinion, the craziest. So in order to explain how this works, first, let's talk briefly about what normal people do with mortgages. For most people, we typically get a mortgage, and slowly throughout our life, we try to pay that off over the course of our career. Now, a mortgage is a leverage investment. So what I mean by leverage investment is, let's say that you get a loan for the bank to get a 500K house and you put 100K in. Well, it's easier to make more money out of that 500K investment because it's a larger sum of money. It's easier for that house to increase by, like, let's say 5%, and you get way more back from that original investment of 100K because you have this leverage loan. Now, in this particular scenario, you're dependent on making these mortgage payments monthly, and the bank has your house as collateral if you can't afford those payments. Rich people do this as well, but on a much larger scale. So I didn't even know about this, but what I realized was that for wealthy people, they can actually take loans on buying a business with huge tax benefits. A common strategy for these wealthy people is they acquire entire businesses on borrowed money. And this is what's known as a leveraged buyout called LBO. I have tons of examples of wealthy people who do this, but there's also popular examples that you actually probably have heard about, but didn't really know that this was actually happening behind the scenes. So for example, Manchester United. It is the most valuable soccer club in the world, but in fact, in 2005, the Glazers, who are a US family, they actually bought the club with a leveraged buyout. What this means is that they didn't spend any of their own money. It was all a leveraged buyout where the club's assets was used as the collateral to get the loan from the bank. Similarly, for Toys R Us, it was actually purchased for $6.6 billion in a leveraged buyout by private equity firms in 2005, and $5.3 million was financed through debt, meaning that they didn't spend any of that money out of pocket. It was all through loans from the banks. There are additional examples such as Hilton Hotels Corporation, acquired for $26 billion, Dell, HCA Healthcare. Actually, these are all leveraged buyouts, which means a big mortgage for a business that you're buying. It works the same way, whereas for normal people, the collateral is their house. The collateral in this case is this particular business. And again, this comes at minimal personal capital investment, and essentially they're leveraging really good debt to buy an asset that will make them money years down the line. So these are the top 3 things that I've noticed that wealthy people buy that maybe middle-class people don't really know about. But buying any of these things require you to not just like something, but to really understand the industry that you're buying into, and to understand if the items that you're buying are depreciating or if they're an asset that will make you money down the line. I feel like for a lot of people, even myself, that a lot of the budget goes into entertainment, into food, into your normal day-to-day activities, but the least amount of money is being spent on educating yourself so that you can build up that skill to earn active income. That, I think, is still the best investment possible.